Another episode, Steel City Roundtable, coming your way. I want to thank you guys for coming back, all of my viewers, all four people that watched the podcast last week. Thank you. And today is going to be a really cool episode. I got a great guy on here. I met him through social media. His name is Chris Searcy. So everybody, welcome Chris.
All right, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Like you said, my name is Chris Searcy. I'm a retired firefighter from the city of McKeesport. I spent roughly 30 years collectively in public service, and that kind of fed. I'm in recovering in alcoholism and addiction, and the fire department was part of it. I mean, the fire department became my life, becomes your family because you spend so much time there, and we'll get more into that as we progress into the program. But I'm lucky to be here today to share this story.
Awesome. So I met Chris through Facebook. He had messaged me, and of course me, everybody, I check Facebook the least of all my social medias, and I came across his message because he had done a podcast with someone that we both know, the Weight We Carry podcast with Bart Heaney, and we actually had Bart on this show, which was a great episode. But we found that we have a lot of things in common. So, Chris was more than welcome to come on today and tell his story. So, the way this works is I interject a little bit. It's a conversation. It's not an interview. I want you to be comfortable. I want you to enjoy yourself.
Sure, man.
So basically where we're going to start is why don't you go through your journey?
Sure.
Start from the beginning, work your way through it, and then I'll jump in here or there. But other than that, we'll just let you roll.
Absolutely. So a little bit about my background, my childhood. I was born in Brockton, Mass. In 1967. I'm 58, so I was born up in Boston, outside of Boston, in Brockton. If you recognize the town, it's the hometown to Rocky Marciano and Marvin Hagler. That was like some of the notoriety from where I was born. Moved down to Florida when I was 7 after my grandfather died. My dad took his own life when I was 3.5. So at that time in my life, I was growing up in a single mom family. I had one older brother and one older sister. The loss of my dad, as I progressed in life at young ages, I didn't notice the loss that it really caused in my life. Being older now and my behavior and how things ended up with me, as I look back, I can put the pieces together as to why maybe I did some of the stuff that I did. But I had my first drink when I was 13, and I'm pretty certain that I became an alcoholic after the first drink.
So you didn't drink till you're 13. Your dad dies at a young age. Let's backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
So how old were you when your dad died again?
3.5.
Okay, so you probably don't remember a lot.
No. I actually have memories of him when I was little, looking at him when he was it's hard. They're like flashbacks, from that. But absolutely right. I was too young to really know my dad.
Yeah, like my dad left. I grew up with step parents my entire life. My dad left when I was like 4, and I remember the smell of coffee in the morning. Like that's the first thing I think of when I think of my dad is the smell of coffee because he worked for Bethlehem Steel. He was a steel worker, and he would get up at like the butt crack of dawn, and I would smell the coffee, and I would sleep. I remember I would sleep on the couch with him. So there weren't a lot of like there were a lot of like emotional connection memories, but there's nothing substantial, right?
Yeah.
So he dies at 3.5. How does that impact you and your family?
Well, my mom, they were divorced. My mom and he had just divorced. I can't tell you exactly how long because it was so long ago, but he had mental health issues, and it became a severe, real bad issue with my mom and his relationship, and they finally divorced. He had moved out of the house, and we were living in the house by ourselves. But it just leaves a void inside. That's the only thing I can think of as I look back. Because at the moment when you're going through it, yeah, I missed him, and I'm sure I did, but I don't remember all that stuff because I was so young. But now looking back, there was a void that I thought didn't need to be filled, but it absolutely needed to be filled. And that's why today, and that's one of the saving graces of whatever reason that had to happen, I've turned it into the positive because now I understand how bad my daughters need me, and that's a whole nother. I got so many chapters in my story, because my life was a life full of storms. pretty much brought on myself by bad choices, bad decisions, the bad people, wrong relationships, you name it, everything. But every single one of them, as I progressed into that young age and took my first drink, every single thing in my life suffered because of my addiction and alcoholism. Everything. But the crazy thing is it's the hardest thing I ever worked at trying to get right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like to talk, so
Yeah.
we have a lot of as I talk to more people in recovery through the podcast and through my AA journey, I noticed that literally there's so many similarities to every single person I talk to. Like not having my dad around left a void, right? So I filled that with being a troublemaker and doing whatever and hanging out with the wrong people. Um, but that's, I mean, when you look back on it, if you take a look at your family tree, right? Like my family tree when I was in rehab, they had us go through and write down every family member we could think of, and then if they had mental health or addiction issues. And I went back through it, and there was mental health in every generation.
Mm-hmm.
So, it kind of made things clear that I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying it's genetic. Like I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that if you have history of mental health in your family, there's a good chance that you could get struck with the same affliction.
Yeah.
How do you think about that? Do you think that's
It's funny. I've never really talked about the topic of mental health with all this stuff. But I'll say this: my sister was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenic. Okay, that's what my dad had. And my brother and I, when we had a discussion one time, he's 6 years older than me, so he's 62, 64, something like that. But I was visiting up in Boston, and we were in the car together, and we just struck up this conversation out of nowhere. It showed up. And somehow we both were thinking the same thing as we were growing up, that if we can just live to the age that our dad killed himself, if we can just live to another year past that age, we'll be okay. I think he probably died when he was like late 20s, maybe early 30s. I don't know exactly. But we came to that agreement that we both had that same feeling of if we can just get past that age, that we should be okay. As crazy as that sounds, because age has no real, I guess, bearing on it. But it's always been a worrisome to me. When I act out, when I do stupid things or bad choices or erratic behavior, I always start to think like, is there something wrong with me? Why do I do what I do? I've asked myself that 1,000 times.
well, I mean, we as addicts and alcoholics. Let me fix this real quick.
Yeah, I was I was gonna take it off and just flip it. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I didn't notice what it was doing. We'll just 2, 3. So, as addicts and alcoholics, I think we're all living on borrowed time. When we're in our addiction, it's borrowed time. It's like we have a bunch of landmarks. We have a bunch of goals, like street signs. Like, hey, if I make 20, I'm cool. Hey,
Yeah.
then you make 20, you're like, hey, if I make it to 25,
Yep.
then you get 25, it's like make it to 30. And I look back, I'm 51, and I've been saying that since I was fucking 17. If I could just go 5 more years, and
Yeah.
so you realizing that having that mindset where it was just like you had to have a goal.
Yep.
Like even it sounds ridiculous, but you had to have a goal to keep living.
It's you always just think like if you can just and I don't know if I called it a goal. If I could just get there,
Yeah.
get to the finish line there, then life will change or life will be different or I'll be okay. And half of it was about being able to drink and use without destroying my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I go out this time? I know if I drink this time, it'll be okay. After I just promised 15 people I'll never drink again. I've done that 1,000 times. And it got to a point where, and there was a couple of times through my journey that when I was drinking and that's not part of the journey; it's just part of my life. That it got so bad that I couldn't even stop for a day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, well, I'm not going to drink until the weekend. And then 2 days later or a day later or that night, I'm grabbing a drink, and it was that type of stuff that started to concern me a little bit. But as long as I kept drinking it, I just wouldn't care.
I mean, I went through that numerous times, like every day for like 2 years. I'd be like, I'd get out of the truck. I'd get in the truck in the morning, be like, hey, I'm not drinking today. I feel good. And then as soon as I got out of the truck, I was at Sheets.
Oh, dude.
Getting 2-pounders, chugging those on the way home, and then drinking a half gallon when I got home. A lot of people, like, denial, I think, is misunderstood.
Yeah.
Denial is not a state. It's not a distinct moment. It's very subjective for every person. And I think as addicts and alcoholics, we go through a daily, hourly, by the minute denial. Like,
Yeah.
hey, as long, I'm okay today. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Oh, everything's cool. I'm going to be okay later. And then like throughout the day, we're fighting that denial to like, you said it, I'm okay,
Yep.
you know? So for you being okay, what was your okay?
Um, if I wasn't making any amends that day, or if I didn't empty the bank account.
But you weren't thinking about the amends when you were in addiction, like,
No,
because we don't think
no,
about
no,
anybody
no,
else.
no. But if I woke up the next day, if I even went to bed, that was half the problem. Usually I wasn't even going to bed. I was on benders for 2 or 3 days. But if I didn't burn anything down or destroy a part of my life, a specific area, whether it be a relationship, work, my daughters, whatever, if I didn't destroy anything, then I see it as like, well, that wasn't successfully.
Mm-hmm.
Because 99.9% of the time when I would go out, I destroyed something.
Burning bridges,
Every
dumpster
single,
fires.
every single, yes. I mean, multiple dumpster fires in one night.
Yeah.
I was real good at that. And, I got to say this, though. It's like, because I'm a God guy. The only reason I'm able to sit here with you, which I think this is an amazing thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
I really do. And I'm an emotional guy. I may tear up as we go through this, but, through God's grace, man. Because what's happened in my life over the last 22 months, no human being could have put together. Honestly, no human being could have put together. I was completely hopeless, completely broken, empty. I'd given up on my family. I thought I'd lost them. And when I'd never been that far gone, ever. Never been that far gone. I always had a bottom. I always had a bottom. This outing, there was no bottom. There was nothing I wouldn't have done. And I just kept doing it. And deeper and deeper and deeper. There was no stop. And the only way I stopped, because I couldn't, when I say I couldn't stop for a day back when I was younger, that's true. When this came to an end, I couldn't stop for 10 minutes. Because my biggest fear at that moment in my life was when I wake up being somewhat sober and start thinking about the damage I've done to my people that love me, how bad I destroyed them and affected them, and how bad I destroyed my life and lost this, that, and everything else. That fear of having to think about it overwhelmed everything else. As soon as I'd wake up, and I was living hotel to hotel for a while, and as soon as I'd come up from a pass out, because I would just go till I'd fall asleep, shots, lines, instantly, first thing in the morning, whenever it was, half and midday, whenever I would wake up, and that's how bad it was, man. And I had a motorcycle accident almost 2 years ago, and that's what saved my life.
So let's do this. I want to really touch on this stuff, but I do want to hear the rest of your story.
Yeah.
So you start drinking at 13.
Yep.
And then let's move forward from there.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Clearwater, Florida area, this little town called Dunedin, and it was a fun place to grow up. The beach, all that stuff. Great place for kids, and a great place for people that grew into like loving to party. I was an athlete through school, and I could have excelled at a whole bunch of stuff, and my decisions went the wrong direction because I got myself associated with the wrong people. And I'm not using that as an excuse because they're still my choices, but I ended up dropping out of high school to go into the service, and then I failed a physical, so that went sideways, and I just never went back. I just got my GED. But I was a good wrestler, and we'd go out drinking and fighting all the time, and so a friend of mine approached me. I was like 20 years old at the time. He's like, "Hey, man, do you want a job?" I'm like, "Doing what?" He's like, "Bouncing in a nightclub." I was like, it was perfect. It was perfect because that was my life. From 13, I was chasing the booze. From that first drink, 13 years old, man. Every single weekend, we'd each get $5, me and my friend Kenny, and we'd go stand over by a grocery store, and we'd pay somebody to go in and get us a six-pack of Tall Boy Coors. And that was every weekend after 13, that first drink. All I was doing, I loved it because the night that we had that little party and I had my first drink, I was so inadequate. My self-confidence was, bottom. My just thoughts about myself was self-value, all that stuff. It just wasn't there. And when I had those first couple drinks that night, I don't remember how many, the feeling it gave me in my mind was like, man, I'm Superman, and it just made me feel good.
Did you find that it filled that void that was left by your dad?
Oh, dude, absolutely. Right there, instantly. Every void was filled. Right there, instantly. And that's why alcohol became such a big part of my life, because that is what kept me going. At least that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it was the animal and the demon that was chasing me my entire life. But at that time in my life, it filled every void, man. And that's why I love to drink, because it just made me feel better.
I mean, it makes you feel superhuman. It makes you feel like nothing can hurt you. I was the same way. Two different personalities. There was Mark, and there was Mark when he's drinking.
Yep.
Mark when he's drinking was the funny, crazy dude that would do anything and most outgoing and would hit on girls. And then there was Mark, the real person, who would sit in his room and wait for wrestling practice or wait for softball, baseball practice or wait for whatever sport I was playing.
Yep.
And that's it. Like, I didn't go on a date till I was almost 17 because I just focused on sports because I was no good at being around people.
Yeah. Yep. Same.
So, 13, fill in the void. You become an every weekend drinker.
Yep.
Let's go from there.
And I mean, for the most part, my story's not that. It's not like it's anything special. It's nothing special. It's actually sad,
But it's yours.
It's my story. It is. It's it's just. And look, I'll keep mentioning God in this because, like I said, there's no other reason. The only way I'm able to be here was because he saved my life. Now, my mom had me in church growing up, and so that created. Now here's the battle. This was part of my battle growing up, and into like early 20s and everything else, was being in church. And I'm not a religious Bible thumper. I am just a truth teller, and I'll speak the truth of how it's affected my life and what it did to my life, being in church and believing in certain things, and is it created, the church atmosphere and the Word of God created a moral compass, and a conscience. So when I was doing something wrong, and I knew it, I'd feel it,
I mean, did you think you didn't have a moral compass beforehand, or did you think you just turned it off? Because I know I've always had one.
No, yeah.
But I think I just kind of find a way to turn that shit off.
I'll tell you what turned it off. Alcohol and cocaine turned it off. And that's why when I was going through certain things in my life, I don't talk too much about this part of it, but a couple of years, 3 years ago, my wife kicked me out of the house. Okay. And you want to talk about an awful internal battle, man. And I'm thinking like this is going to work out just fine, and that knife inside of me, and I like to refer to it. It's the Holy Spirit. It's God talking to me, man. And every single day, from the time I open my eyes, just getting punched in the face with pain and torment and torture because I was doing something so wrong. I was destroying that and looking past it, not giving a shit about it. And the battle of trying to make it okay in myself was not possible. So you want to talk about taking it up a notch? The more I put in me, the more I put up my nose, the easier it got to deal with. But then I had to deal with it the next morning when I woke up, and we start right over again.
I mean, that's the crucial point right there. Like, I appreciate you sharing something so personal. That's got to be hard. But yeah, I mean, like, I think we all do it. I think to some extent we all suffer from anxiety and depression and some type of mental health disorder. I always say that, I think all addicts and alcoholics have a mental health background, like a poor mental health background, but it's not the other way for people with mental health issues, right? Like, they're not all addicts.
Yeah, true.
Because, I'm sure a lot of you guys listening can identify with what Chris just said. You had to do more to deal with what you were feeling, but then as soon as you sobered up a little bit, the anxiety, the depression, the regret would fill in, and then it's like being in a prison that you've made for yourself in your mind, where you can't escape. There is no way out of that prison, And for you to tell people that, I really appreciate the honesty in that, because that's a hard thing to admit, But so, how did you work through? Well, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's keep going. So, you were talking about how the addiction became every day, and then let's build up to where you are now. So let's go back to
Well,
like high school and
yeah, yeah,
how your
yeah.
disease progressed.
Through like I said, I went through high school. I got out, dropped out, and in my senior year to go into the Marine Corps and failed the physical. I broke my left arm 13 times. Had a couple surgeries on it, and they saw the scar, so it had to be revealed and whatever. And then they disqualified me because of that. So, but I was already out, and I just kept progressing through life with no purpose. You know, I was at the age now where I'd kind of stepped away from church because I was old enough. I was out living on my own with my when you move in with people that are just like you, it just goes to the next level. You know.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, and so that's what my life was for like the next 4 or 5 years from the age of 20 to like, well, I'm probably even younger than that, 19 to like 23 or 24, and it was this same couple people that I stayed around, and man, it just dragged me down faster than I could have done it myself. I'll say that. But I kept allowing it to happen because they were like me, and there was nothing, there was no judgment amongst us. No matter how bad you got or what you did, we were doing it again tomorrow. And it just kept going, and it was so far out of my control. When I look back, I had no say over it. I like to say that I can control my choices, but when you've got something inside of you craving something so much that kind of dictates the sail of where you're going, um, I just couldn't break the pattern. I just couldn't break the pattern. Now, after that time in my life, we went up to Chicago to open up a nightclub for these same people that we were working with, and I ended up in Pittsburgh after Chicago. I ended up in Pittsburgh in 1993, and that's when I got introduced to the fire service. Okay, I was in Bethel Park, and I drove past this fire station on Brightwood Road. I don't know how many times, like 500 times or something, in about a year. And I had to stop in to see what volunteer meant. So I did, and long story short is I I applied to go in, and I was in, and I was hooked instantly. Like, I don't know if it was the same for you as being a police officer or not, but as soon as I got my feet wet in that service, man, it didn't take me any time at all to love it. I instantly loved it. I loved the adrenaline rush. I'm a like, ride the lightning type of guy, push everything to the edge. And so I was an aggressive guy, and I loved the fire service, and so, but with the fire service comes a culture of drinking, you know, and PTSD, which really wasn't talked about back then like it is today. But, when I look back over the whole realm of everything, the whole puzzle starts to come together. It's like, instead of like, why wasn't I an alcoholic? It's more like how wouldn't I have been an alcoholic? You know what I mean? Because of the things I put myself into, but it was all through my life, even up to these last years, a couple of years ago when I finally had the miracle happen, and this spiritual awakening, man, and the obsession relieved. Like, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that ever. I've heard people talk about it in the rooms, and I had to go through these awful, awful, awful storms, dude. These awful, painful times that you can't explain the pain. The pain was so great. I couldn't medicate enough to make it go away. I just kept medicating just to try to stay alive. And I you know, it's a miracle I'm here, and you know, I'm grateful to be here. I am.
We're grateful to have you.
You know?
I mean, I think we all go through that same fight. I think we all, to some extent, go through the same fight where we just get to that point. Like you mentioned rock bottom earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I always mention this show on this website called Inspiring Sobriety. She has a shirt that says, I guess rock bottom has a basement. Because in my life, I've hit rock bottom 7, 8, 9, 10 times, right? Like I probably hit rock bottom every day.
Yeah.
But then it came to a certain moment where I was ready to end my life, which showed me that there was so much deeper in the hole to go before I finally decided there was something I needed to do for myself. So you said, a couple years ago you had a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into that a little bit.
So the last 7 days that I was basically homeless, I was living hotel to hotel. This last 7 days, I lost my phone, and I always try to stay in touch with my girls, even when I was bad, And I went 7 days without contacting them at all. And so I was out this last night, and I dumped all my money I was gambling. See, because I'm a coke guy, I would be up all night, all the time, and the only places open all night were casinos. So I was at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm flat broke. I had nowhere to go, man, nowhere to go. So I went back to my house, and I had some change in my pocket. I'm standing on my back deck and I'm throwing like change at my girl's window to try to get him to wake up and come down and open the door for me. And my daughter Sophia came down and answered the door, and she was hysterically crying because they thought I was dead. They hadn't heard that had never happened. They heard from me like a couple times a day, drunk, coked up, whatever. They always heard from me. But I lost my phone and I didn't give a shit. And that was a whole new, like, bottomless bottom, you know what I mean? That I didn't even stay in touch with my girls. And surprisingly, my wife let me come into the house and she let me lay down. She just put me in the basement. So, because I was exhausted, dude. This run was starting to slow down and I was broke. I'd burnt every bridge. And so she let me go down and sleep in the basement, and I had to meet with the cops. That was a Sunday morning. I had to meet with the cops Monday night because she'd put out a missing persons report on me. So the cops had to come to the house, and I had to show myself and tell them I was all right. And the policeman gave me his card, and I'd already known some of these cops because of where I live, and that's embarrassing, man, in itself, to let people that you respect see you in that type of condition, so that was Monday night. So I have no idea what my wife has gotten the strength to do what she's doing right now, and that's let me back in the house, and I'm still in the house, and we're working on the marriage. And but that was a Monday night, and that Friday, I was laying down. If I could, I'd go get something. I'd sneak stuff into the house, and I'd be down in the basement, doing whatever and drinking and sneaking. And see, even that grace from her that allowed me to come into the house, I still disrespected everybody. Didn't matter, you know? And so my mom was moving away. I'd ran her into the ground, and my brother was going to be in town Friday and Saturday. And I told my daughter that Friday night, I said, I'm going to go out for a ride on the bike tomorrow so I don't have to go see my mom and Keith. I just can't face anybody. It's dude, I was at such the bottom of my life. There was no further bottom. And I was just so disgusted with myself. I'd hurt so many people, and I just said, I'm going out on the bike. I was up the next morning at 7 o'clock. I was at Jack's at like 7:30. Lines, drinking, up and down Carson Street all day long, man. And I was always real careful to make sure I didn't get sloppy drunk because I was on the bike. So I would try to do, more of the other stuff, and to at least keep me a little bit you think you're alert and awake, but it went a little bit south, and I ended up doing more shots, and I got sloppy drunk on the bike. And about 5 o'clock, I was riding home, and up in Castle Shannon, I hit a guardrail, and I don't ride with a helmet, and I got thrown off the bike, and I'm lucky I didn't get killed, but that was the miracle, dude. That I couldn't stop myself. The reason I say this is the miracle is the motorcycle accident stopped me. That stopped me. I could not stop. And so I was on the bike trying to ride away, and the bike's all banged up, and it was just ridiculous. People were holding me on the bike at the moment until the cops got there. And so this police officer shows up, and I was respectful to him for the most part. I was making sarcastic stuff because I was just bombed, and he arrested me, and he took me for he arrested me. Okay, the miracle happened right there, right after that, in handcuffs, in the middle of the street in Castle Shannon, dude. I heard God's voice. Now I know people, I'm not trying to make this religious or anything, but I'm telling you, man, He's real, and He loves people, and He loves us. I'm serious, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Him, because He said to me right there in the middle of that street, in handcuffs, that the fight was over. And I'm talking about a 40-year battle, dude, that I could not get out of. Over, right there. The obsession to drink, the compulsion, there was a freedom returned into my spirit instantly, like right there. I was in handcuffs, and I'd never felt that good because I knew the fight was over. And the miracle is like this guy took me to the hospital to get blood, and I didn't fight nobody. I didn't do anything wrong. I just went with it because this right now becomes part of the process to my journey. That's where my journey started. Okay. And so he takes me over, and we're going back to the police station, and I asked him. I said, "Is this going to affect my CDL license with my tree stuff?" And right then and there, I didn't know this guy. At least I didn't think I did. But right then and there, he knew who I was, and he was a customer of mine. But we'd never ever met in person. And because he'd text him, "Hey, Brian," and he'd leave a check at the job, but he knew right then and there. And then when I got the paperwork, and I saw it was Brian McEwen, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, come on, man!" You talk about like feeling like a piece of shit. In front of it, this is a guy that has paid me money to do work for him, and probably respected me as a business guy, and here he is arresting me. But he's part of my journey. Because here's what happened is like as soon as I saw his name and that he was involved, the next day I went to the police station, and I asked the secretary. I said, "Is Brian in?" And she's like, "Yeah, hold on." I was in tears as soon as he opened the door. I teared up, and I said, "Dude, I had to come apologize because of the mess you guys had to clean up. From me wrecking the bike and just being one of those. But I also want you to know that you're part of saving my life." And I asked him a question too, man, because I have a lot of cop friends, and I said, "Would you have cut me any type of break or anything?" And he kind of looked at me, and he's like, I don't know. But if he'd have known me, there's a chance he might have cut me a break. Something. Doesn't matter. And what's important is that he didn't, because I had to go through that to get to where I am right now. See, if like I know lots of cops that would cut your brakes, say they'd take you home, whatever. I'm not saying he would do that, but if something like that would have ever happened, I'd have been right under the radar, and I'd have been right back out the next day. I had to get arrested for the DUI, and that saved my life. And the thing with the DUI is because God works in crazy ways in my life, man. And I'm like, I got a CDL. I'm gonna lose that for a year. I'm gonna lose my license. All this stuff. I'm like, God, why? If I'm grateful for how He's worked in my life in that moment. But my question was when I was praying is, God, what good is a DUI gonna do on my driver's license? Okay. So I started going through the court process. My first hearing in Castee Village was Judge Barton, I think, and I'm sitting there by myself. Didn't get an attorney or anything because I'm broke. I don't have the means to do it. I was going to ask for a public defender, and I see this guy walking down the hallway. And I'm like, man, I recognize that guy. And he looked at me too, and he stopped. He was talking about it, and then he walks up and he puts his hand out. He goes, "How you doing?" He's like, "I know you from somewhere." And I said, "I think you were at my meeting last night." And sure enough, this guy, I'm not going to say names, but this guy's a defense attorney. And he's like, "I'll help you through the process." Didn't charge me anything. He didn't have to do a lot, but he guided me through. And like that's like him showing up at that moment was like a miracle in my life. Serious, because this guy became a very good friend, and he helped me through this. We got the public defender, but I was still wondering like, what's this DUI going to do for me? And I had some colorful backgrounds from down in Florida. So when I was applying for this ARD program, which would expunge everything, I got denied. Okay. So I go to the hearing the day they're going to gavel it, and I don't know why, dude. I asked to speak to the DA, and she came out, and I told her my story, just like I'm telling it right now of how bad it was, my problems, and the only thing I added was I don't understand how something I did or a couple of things I've done when I was younger, 30 years ago, 30 or more years ago, why would they affect me now to try to put my life back together? And she goes, "You know what? It's real compelling. This story is really compelling. I'm going to go back and talk to the DA." I think that was it was the public defender. Yeah, not the public defender. It was the DA, but she went back and talked to the other guy, and she's like, we'll let you know what happens. So I didn't go to court that day. 3 days later, I get an email that says I made the ARD program. So that was another way God worked in my life, man. He created another miracle. It was a little miracle after miracle, and so I went through the whole process. My license was suspended for 60 days. I did all my stuff I had to do for the probation. My CDL was suspended for a year, but I got that back, and it all worked out, man. And I had to surrender. One of the biggest things I had to learn to do was surrender it all. I can't hold on to it and try to control anything. I've got to let Him do the work, and that's why it's so big with me. And I know people have trouble with that, and but I'm here to tell people, man, like if you find Him, or if you're struggling, man, I mean, He can help you get through. I mean, he saved my life, Mark. He saved my life. He saved my family. You know.
I mean, it's thank God you didn't die on your motorcycle. I knew we had some things in common because I had a Harley. I had a street
That's
glide.
what it was.
And when I started at the job I worked at now, I had probably laid the thing down like 3 times in the last year drinking on it. And I sold it to my boss. That was the start. I think subconsciously, that was the start of me realizing something needed to change.
Yeah.
Because I sold the bike and then I had my meltdown, like, I don't know, like 6 months, 8 months later, and then I went to rehab. Um, for those of you who don't know, ARD, I think, is called Accelerated Rehabilitation Disposition. It's basically if you've never had a DUI before and you get a clean background, or at least just like dumb shit, no felonies, they allow you to go through a quicker program with your DUI. It shortens the suspensions. You pay the money, and then you're able to get it expunged off your record as long as you complete the program and complete your follow-up. So it's a great program for those people that get DUIs, like people in your case that it makes it a little easier for people who really have a problem. It gets abused when it's like just the idiots that just want to be idiots, and don't really care about anything. So you go through the DUI, you go through the motorcycle accident, you heal up apparently.
Yeah.
Okay. You get sober right then, or does it take you a little while?
Right then, dude. Right then. I was drunk. I was still drunk when I was in handcuffs. Bombed. I mean, honestly, when my wife had to pick me up at the police station, they didn't take me to the jail, which was very courteous of them. They could have dropped me off down at the Allegheny County, but he took me back to Castle Shannon, and my wife had to come pick me up. And man, you talk about, I was more afraid of her than I was the cops, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. Like when you get a DUI, normally if you can be released to a responsible adult, they do it by mail and they let you go home. Usually the only time they take you to jail is if you're a complete asshole.
Yeah, okay.
Or if there's nobody that can come get you because they're not going to let you walk out of that station.
Right. Yeah. So it worked out. That worked out. I wasn't a complete a-hole.
Just partial, right?
Just partial, right? Just I guess I probably did say some dumb things. I'm not that bad, but I was bombed, man.
Yeah.
And but it was that point. That was the miracle happened in the street, and the journey started the next day. Was my first sober day. Okay, that was a Saturday night. I got the DUI. September 29th or September 30th. That was a Saturday. October 1st, that Sunday, was my first day clean and sober. So we did that day. Here's how things started. Like God went to work, right to work, man. Is that next day, that Sunday, after my wife picks me up at the police station for the nonsense that I was put. Look, this lady's been with me for 29 years. We've been together for 29 years, and she didn't sign up for any of this. None of it. I've tortured her. I've abused her. I've just ran her into the ground, man. And just off topic about her is I listen to sermons all the time, and this one pastor was speaking about special people. And he said, God will put somebody in your life who can tolerate you. And I'm telling you, anybody else would have left me that quick. Anybody else would have left me 28 years ago. Seriously. But she has been through thick and thin, up and down, good and bad, everything. And she's still here, dude. And But yeah, that October 1st was my first clean and sober day, and from that point, I meant, so here's how serious I was. I was like, I'm gonna go to a meeting on Sunday. We didn't go because we went to a softball tournament, one of my daughter's softball tournaments. Sorry, I'm leaning in and out. But that was a family day for me. That's where the healing also started with my girls and my wife. We went to a softball tournament because my one daughter loves softball. So Monday rolled around. I'm like, I could go to the Monday night meeting. I'm like, nah, there was something going on. And I started all of a sudden see like, no, man, I got to get serious about this. It's time to get serious. Tuesday morning, I went to a meeting out here in Churchill, to the church right off the Parkway. And so I went there. That was my first day, first meeting back. From that point on, I was going to between 3 and 5 meetings a day for 3 months. Went to about 300 meetings, and because I'd been in the rooms before, and miracles happen in those rooms, dude. I'm telling you, they're spirit filled, God filled. Miracles happen in those rooms, okay? And I had to get rerouted back in the Word, not of just the Bible and God and that stuff. I had to get back in the Word of AA. No more nonsense. If I wanted this, look, I'm sorry meant nothing to my girls. I'm sorry meant nothing to my wife. If I was gonna fix this and start to rebuild, they had to see a constant change of behavior every single day. And from that day on, if I said I was going somewhere, that's where I went. If I said I was going to be with someone, that's who I was with. If I was going here, it didn't matter. That's where it all began, because that's where my work needed to start. And they just sat back and watched. They're going to see if he's serious or not. And I was going to show them that I was serious. And several months down the road, we were at a softball game with my daughter, and she was helping the team, and I was in the car with my other daughter. And, my wife and I were still rocky at that point. And I asked my daughter, I played straight out, I said, what is your biggest fear? And I thought for sure she was going to say that you and Mom don't get back together. And she said, if you start drinking again, Dad. And, when you don't think you're hurting people close to you, when a 13-year-old or 12-year-old, however old she was at that moment, when they say it as raw as that, and she was serious, then you know it's real, and I made sure that I'm not going to let her down at that moment. And it's not about letting anybody down. It's about me doing the work for me. But when I do the work for me, everybody else benefits.
I mean, that's a really important thing you just said, because as I lose my train of thought, it's not if we're hurting people, it's how badly are we hurting them? How destroyed are we leaving the relationships in our past? Because we don't care. Literally, we are the biggest narcissists, and everything we do is for that goal of stopping the pain, stopping the mental anguish we go through. So once again, I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. That's some serious shit. So, now, you've been sober since, what did you say, September?
October 1st, 2023.
How many months is that now?
That's like 22. The end, let's see. July, August, and September, I'll have 2 years. So.
Yeah, I just hit my 2 years in May of this year.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you, man. I haven't been sober all that long.
Yeah.
So I can really relate. To the AA journey.
Well, here I'm going to correct you on something. And I'm not saying it to be a jerk.
Yeah.
Dude, every day you're sober is a big deal.
Yeah.
So when we have newcomers come in the rooms, because if you're like me and you probably were pretty close with alcohol, whatever, I don't know you that bad. I don't know your story that much. If you could stay sober for a day, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got 2 years almost. That's a huge deal. It's and people come into the rooms and like, I only have 30 days. I'm like, are you kidding me? Only? There's no such thing as only.
Yeah.
Every single day is a miracle. And that's my attitude with this is I'm so grateful for the opportunity. See, I look at life as I don't have to do things. I look at life now, especially with work.
You get to do them.
I get to do them. Mm-hmm. You got to look at it like it's not a chore, that it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because honest to God, if I wouldn't have had that motorcycle accident, I'd be one of two places right now: in prison or dead. I had no, there was no other path. That was the Y in the road, and it was just me making a choice to which was going to send me which direction. That was it. And an attitude of gratitude. Those little cliche sayings that you hear in the rooms, man. Attitude of gratitude is like something I live by, and that's why I'm so grateful to be here, sitting here with you, and I'm sorry for the lengthy delays. If everybody watching knew this whole story, man, we've tried to schedule this 7 times or 8 or however many, um, but man, what you do, and I was grateful to Bart and Brittany, and because they're sharing the message too, and it's about sharing the message. It's about sharing the message to people who need to know there's hope. Because if you were like me, I was completely hopeless. I didn't see any way back. None. Zero. I'd given up. I was bottomless. I was hopeless. I was broken beyond repair. And now, God has put me back together one day at a time, a little bit at a time, you know? And, you're a good dude, man. I don't even know you that well. And just sitting here talking with you, it's, you're part of my we now.
Well, if my wife gets home before you leave, you can find out that I'm not that great a person.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, you get to do things.
Yeah,
I got to piss my wife off today. I get to apologize when she gets home. I get to kiss her ass when she gets home. But it's okay. It's okay because in the past, this shit would have debilitated you. You get a fight with your old lady, you get a fight with your kids, and you're thinking about it for the next day and a half. I want to really hit on something,
Sure.
Because you're a big AA guy. It's easy to tell you're a big AA guy because there's two types of AA.
Yeah.
There's like the me type, and there's the you type, right? The me type is the guy that I did the same thing. I dove into AA when I got back. I went to over 100 meetings in the first month.
Yeah.
But then I kind of backed away a little bit from the program, not because I don't like the program, but because I started doing this.
Yeah.
So like this for me is a big part of my recovery, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can tell that you still probably go to 3, 4, 5 meetings a week if you can.
I try.
If you can, yeah.
I try.
So, that leads me into this thing.
Yeah.
We talked about higher power.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about how, people in the programs tend to have a problem with the whole spirituality God thing. Now, I'm going to give you my take, and then I want to hear yours.
Sure.
I still struggle with my higher power. I just started back to church this last year with my recently married wife.
Very cool.
I've been to church 3 times in this year, which is more than I've been to in the last 30, right? Except for weddings and funerals. So I still struggle with my relationship with God. My relationship with God sometimes is still like, well, you owe me.
Yeah.
I've suffered, if the church is going to tell me that, I suffered because that was your will, I don't like that. I'm pretty pissed off about that. I threw my life away for 34 years. Like, how is that, but I'm starting to build to the understanding that, listen, that's not God's part. That's the other side of the coin. That's the devil's part, right?
Right.
The devil's what caused you to do bad shit. God just tries to help you get through it.
Right.
So my higher power is being able to sleep at night. Truly, that's my higher power. If I can sleep at night, I've done good things that day. I haven't hurt anybody. I haven't treated anybody like shit. I've done the best I could. For you, I can tell it's going to be a little bit more in depth. So can you go into it goes deeper, as shallow as you want, but into like your higher power and how you got to find yours.
Well, I owe it to my mom. My mom was a Christian lady, and she had me in church. She got me in church, and I'm not saying church is the place to find God. You can find God anywhere you want to. I mean, it's the same God that I found, but it doesn't take being in the church. The church exposes you to the Word of God. If you're in a good church and you got good people, because you got wrong motives and bad motives in churches too. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? And but I gave my life to Christ when I was little, and that's where my journey with Him began. And how I found Him is through my mom, but being in church and hearing the Word, hearing what He can do, hearing how much He loved me, and that He would forgive me no matter what I do. And the thing with what you were just talking about is, and look, I've struggled with in certain areas like that myself. Is my choice, my thing that I have to look at is to not be mad at a God, at my God at least, is He gives us free will. We have the ability to make the choices we make. Now I do. It's not even that I struggle, because look, when I got back, when my journey started, like I said, I had burned every bridge. Okay, and in order to feel that true freedom and peace that He can give to you, I had to surrender everything in all areas of my life, and I had nothing left. So I was getting foreclosure calls. I was getting repossession notes. I had nothing left. Okay, and I'm laying in the basement. What can I do? And it was that moment where I said, God, if you could please show me your strength, love, and power, I'm surrendering my whole life to you right now. And as soon as I went to that mindset, I still had to do some work. I had to make phone calls. I had to, talk to people. Everything worked out, dude. We didn't lose a thing. And I had zero money, nothing. And I had to call and talk to these people. But the people I were talking to, God works on the other people too. He softens their heart with people who are in a position to make a choice, good or bad for you. And I when I'm in the middle of something and it's important, somebody else has the ability to make a choice that can affect my life. I pray about that God touches their heart, man. Because when somebody's in a position who can make a change in your life, I ask it I ask for His will to be done, and I always I lean in a direction I'd like to see it. But when you turn your will over to Him, you have to be ready for an answer that you might not like, and that's where a lot of people struggle. They want to control what the outcome's going to be. Um, and for me, I couldn't control anything. I had to truly surrender it all in order to let Him do His work. And then I just was on the ride, man. Um, I was just letting Him guide me, you know. I heard somebody say in a meeting at the Onala. You ever go to the Onala?
Oh yeah, the night owl meeting, 10 o'clock.
I was going to meet. I was living at that place. This one guy said, "You know what? I look at it like this. My life is under new management because I couldn't do it the right way." And that's basically what I've done. I've destroyed my life, my whole life, just continuously over and over and over and over and over again. Destroyed it, burned bridges, hurt people, everything. So I've turned my life in the direction it needs to go to Him. So I just wait for doors to open. I wait for doors to close. This was an open door. This is a door He opened. You know what I mean? It's a good thing, and because the rooms, man. It's like so many miracles happen in those rooms. I had and here's just an instant of how they don't work sometimes. I've got a friend who called me today, said their significant other relapsed, going back to rehab, and this person's concerned about their baby, and I'm like, you can't get this person sober. They have to want it. They will torture you. They'll run you into the ground trying to get them sober. You know, and I think that happened to my wife. I think she just gave up because she saw there was nothing she could say, do, or anything else that was going to help me. I'd say, hey, I'm going to go meet Nick. He was the fire chief in Mount Lebanon. I'd say, hey, I'm going to go meet Nick for a beer. She's like, you're the only one who thinks you're going to have one. Because she knew. And sure enough, I'd be home at like 8 o'clock in the morning. But the relationship with God and how I found Him, man, He's always walked beside me. Because I initiated the relationship. I asked Him to come into my life when I was young. And I've separated myself a little bit, but He was always there. He never left, and all I had to do was reach out, pray. I'm a big prayer. Thank God there's no limit on how many times a day I can pray. Because, I'm asking God, please help me 100 times a day. You know what I mean? Serious. And I post stuff on Facebook, and I share my story. And a lot of times that's I tell people, look, if you're struggling with this, a great first step is just to say, God, please help me. That opens the door for an invitation for Him to come into your life. And, when He goes to work, it's a beautiful thing to see, man. It is. It's, I should have been dead. I should have been dead. I should have lost everything. The only reason I'm sitting here, the only reason I have a wife and kids at home that I go home to, the only reason the car's sitting out front, the only reason I still have a small business, and it's because I have people in my life that still love me, that I've shown through my actions, and that God has touched her heart to be soft on me. You know what I mean? Because you can get really mad at a person like me and be resentful and hate me and MF me and all that stuff, which my wife has done. She doesn't do that anymore, you know? And, watching her grow through this, man, is like, you know, what's kind of funny, man, is I don't even know why I'm going to talk about this, but, our relationship was rocky for the last several years because of my behavior, when she asked me to move out, she knew what was coming because I had been sober for about a year and a half, and I started drinking again. And she knew what was coming. That's how many times she's been through this, and she was doing it to protect my girls. And that was her defense mechanism. You got to go. It was either deal with me and damage the girls, or make me leave and protect the girls. You know. So that was a hard choice for her to make. I know it was. There's no way in hell she wanted to see me walk out of the house. No, no, nobody does when you got a family involved. And you know, she did that. And when I came back to the house, when she let me come back, I sat her down and I just had to say this one thing. And I said, "You're not going to probably like how this sounds, but I want to say something." And I said, before all this happened, before this miracle happened in my life, there was no chance our marriage was going to make it. There was no chance the marriage was going to survive. Zero. She didn't want it, and I was done because I wanted to drink. I wanted my life, which she was interfering with. And I sat there right there, man. And as crazy as it sounds, I said, right now, there's a 50% chance this marriage is going to survive because I'm in. I want to fix this. And God works in crazy ways, dude. I'm telling you. And the fact that all this had to happen, I don't question it. I look at right now and tomorrow and what I need to do to keep this thing going. And what I want to make my wife happy. I want her to love me, and I want to take care of my girls in the same house. And I don't want to be, people think it's okay to split up and it doesn't bother the kids. It does bother your kids. I believe that, and that's why I want to be present for my girls, man, because I needed that from my dad and I didn't get it. Different reason, but still same outcome. And like that stuff's so important to me now. Before I didn't give a shit. So there's multiple miracles in this story, dude.
I love hearing people that are very big God believers talking about their belief because if you're not learning, you're not living, right?
Yeah.
You learn something every day. And, I'm the guy that, like, I don't pray. I have the serenity prayer up there.
Mhm.
It's the only prayer I say, and I say it when I'm at meetings or when I'm having a bad day. But
Yeah.
for me, prayer will start when I can start praying for something other than what I need you to fix.
Yeah.
Because it's that, oh God, please help me. I did this. If I get through this one, I'll make it
Yeah.
another day. I swear I won't do it again.
Yeah.
So for me, prayer, I was a church kid.
Yeah.
I went to church every Sunday with my mom and my stepdad. But then once I left the house, I kind of went my own way.
Yep.
So, to hear you explain it, it makes me get a better feel of how, how this should work.
Yeah.
Because if you pray selflessly, then it's a legit, real prayer.
Look, it's here's another way I've changed my prayers, because I used to be asking for things all the time growing up until this thing all happened. I still, like, God knows my heart, and I can't hide it. Like, if I'm trying to sneak a prayer in there and try to sneak it by him, you know what I mean? He knows what I'm praying and asking for. But now it's like, God, no matter what happens in my life today, thank you. That's the true. I'm willing to turn my will over to him. His will, not my will, be done. And sometimes I get the right outcome, and it's not even the right one. It's his outcome. He's got a perfect plan for me. And I'm just on this, like, I'm just hanging on, dude. Like, it's a roller coaster. I'm just hanging on. I'm following his lead, but I thank him regardless of what happens. Like, I got this awful thing going on in my backyard at the house, a pool project. And it's driving me into the ground. I just wanted to try to put up some little above ground pool for my kids, and it's turned into a nightmare. And like this morning, I was out there in boots in the mud, sucking water up with a shop vac to try to get it to dry out so these people can build a little pool. And man, I was so angry. I was so aggravated, ready to slam something and just MF everybody and just ready to throw the towel in, you know? And then I remembered as I was coming out here that because of the pool, we had to put in a new little fence line on one side of the yard. And a buddy that came over to help me do this selflessly didn't charge me to do it. He's like, you asked me to help you do it. He bought all the wood, everything, and he shows up and we put a fence in. And the conversations I've had with this guy, I haven't seen him in like a couple, 2, 3 years because he was a fireman over in Glassport area and I'm living in the South Hills now, is for that moment, you know? Patience and the conversations I had with Jim is why this whole, and it takes a while to, it does take a while to figure out what's going on, went on. You know, and this pool, this pool project, dude, has taught patience, understanding, you know, faith and trust. You know, I told the girls, I said, just let it go, let God work on it. If we're supposed to have a pool, we'll have one. You know, but these conversations with Jim, I actually reached out to him before I walked in here and said, say a prayer for me, man. I'm doing a podcast today for alcohol and drugs and stuff. And sure enough, he did, man. And you know, those are the people now that God brings into my life out of nowhere, you know? And this pool thing, man. And now the pool has become like the topic of conversation, you know? And I try to turn the bad leaf into the good leaf, flip it over, you know? And you can do that with anything because there's lessons to be learned in everything that you go through.
You did see my yard, right? You need an Aborigines guide to get you to my fence because the weeds are growing out of control, and I keep putting off. Like it's like the topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Like today, I need to pull the weeds, but I didn't want to get out of bed this morning. I was exhausted. It's great to hear. Like you can change. You can just looking at your face. You
Yeah.
can tell when you're talking about how you feel about God and how you
Yeah.
feel about where you are right now. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How's your mental health now?
It's good. You know, I still struggle in one area, and that's road rage. You know, I want to pull people out of a car
I
so
drive a
bad
truck for a living,
sometimes.
bro. Like you ain't gonna talk nothing new to me.
You know, if I had one area that I really need to work on, it's emotional reaction. You know,
Mm.
but 9 times out of 10, it usually has to do with road rage or ignorant people. You know, I just don't have, I don't tolerate either one of them real well, and I'll get myself in trouble, and that's why it's like I'm working on it. You know, and I do it to my, I absolutely go over and above to try to not do it to my wife because I've tortured her long enough, and so I try to control my reaction with her if we're having a discussion or something. But I do bark at my girls once in a while, you know, because maybe something was going wrong with me. And then once I realized why I barked at them, wasn't because of what they did or said. It's because of what I was just going through.
I mean, I'm the same way.
You
Like road
know?
rage in the truck, I literally have to
Yeah.
sit there and go, maybe that guy's a recovering alcoholic and he's having a bad day too. You know, it's so hard. I bark at Shelly once in a while, and I don't mean to, but it just comes out
It
the wrong
happens.
way,
It
you know?
happens, you know. And but my mental health, honestly, overall, man, it's like I have that peace and serenity now. You know, I haven't. Yeah, I love it, dude. It's you know, that freedom. You know, people want peace so bad, and I tried it 100 different ways through life to try to get a peace in my life, and the only way I've ever had it to the point that I have it now is when he stepped in and saved my life and relieved the obsession and the compulsion to drink and use. You know, my whole life was my whole life revolved around if I'm taking a shower, I got to drink in the shower. If I'm going somewhere after the shower to go drink, I'm taking a roadie, and then I'm drinking all night at the wherever I'm at until they throw me out. And if they're going to throw me out and it's only 2 a.m., I'm buying a 12 pack and going to the casino and then running up and back and forth to my car at the casino until 7 o'clock when the bar opens. And that was my entire life. I did nothing without doing that. Nothing. And the fact that I'm not like chasing it, man, has brought me such a peace because I'm not like I'm present now. Like when I do something with my kids, I'm where my feet are. I'm right there. I'm present in the moment. I'm enjoying the moment. I used to look past everything before. Like I'd go to my daughter when I was in the midst of this shenanigans. I'd go to my daughter's softball practice. I'd show up just so she'd see me, not really because I wanted to be there, because I had other stuff that was more important, you know. And 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 I'd show up. I'd stay for 15 minutes. I'd say, "Hey, we gotta get going." So, okay, Dad, we'll see you. Jump in my car, drinking. Off I go. There was nothing that important as the drugs and alcohol. There's nothing more important. And the fact that obsession is gone. Like I don't know how people, and I hope you're not like this, and I'm not trying to target anybody. I don't know how people stay sober through the programs with that obsession barking at them every day, like just white knuckling it. You know what I mean? And I used to hear people talk about the spiritual awakening, and I was like, man, that sucks. Why can't that happen to me? This is years ago because I'd heard about it, never experienced it. This time, like there was nothing else that was going to save me except that type of revival within my life, in my soul. Nothing else was going to change me. It had to be that significant, or else I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have lasted. I really don't, because I'd never even met the one requirement of AA, which is the desire to stop drinking.
Mhm.
I never had that I never made that requirement. I always wanted to learn. I wanted to just be successful at being able to drink and not destroy my life. I did not want to stop drinking, but at points in my life, I'd get shoved into a rehab because it was that bad, and then I'd get sober for a year or so, and then just go right back because I always had one foot in and one foot out.
This fucking camera just.
That's okay.
Okay.
So go ahead. You talk a little bit, man.
I was going to say, so AA. I like to talk about AA because there's a lot of great to AA, but there's also a lot of downfalls to AA. Like one of my biggest issues with AA was the person that would come up to me and be like, "So how you staying sober?" I'm like, "Well, I know if I don't, I'm probably going to kill myself."
Yeah.
And they're like, "You can't think that far. You have to do it one day at a time." And I'm like, "I'm doing it one day at a time, knowing
Yeah.
that that's where it ends up."
Right. Yep.
Like I think, you mentioned how, you know, you can't make somebody get sober, right? Like interventions, I think they're a joke. You can't force somebody to get sober. They have to do it, as you said, they have to do it when they want to. And, I think sometimes all programs of recovery, especially AA is a suggested plan of recovery, right? It's suggested, but they want you to do a certain way.
Yep.
And if you do it a little differently, a lot of times, depending on where you go, they don't like it so much.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to do your 4-step a certain way, your 5th-step a certain way.
Yeah.
So you being more, seems like you're more of a devout AA guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it seems like you've really got a hold on what the program's about.
Yep.
If you could just put it in your own words,
Sure.
what are the 12 steps? Without saying the steps, what would you say the basic element of the 12 steps is?
Okay, this is what I tell everybody regarding the steps. Is the steps are a roadmap of life, successful life. Okay, I tell my girls in step one, powerless over alcohol. I tell my girls, remove alcohol, put shopping, put anxiety, whatever you want to put in there, and then you use the 12 steps to help you deal with that issue one day at a time, And so, I work the steps every single day. It's not that I go through each one. I just live by their meaning. And the meaning is the 1, 2, and 3 are the God thing. 4 is I try not to F up anymore. I try to keep my list of having to say sorry to anybody to a minimum, But I hold myself accountable when I make mistakes. And the first thing I do when I know I made a mistake is I own it, And I'm teaching my girls this because a lot of times they'll do something and they don't understand, like, owning what you do. They just know they did something. And so, the steps, honestly, man, it's, they're not rocket science. Some people, I think, try to make them a little more difficult than they really need to be. And that's not me. Like, I'm a simplistic guy, and I get the meat and potatoes out. If you want to dissect every single one of them, that's not me. I just know that I'm powerless over alcohol. I'm powerless over cocaine. I'm powerless over really managing money real well. You know what I mean? But that's, and the rest of it just helps me control those things.
They're just a way to be a better human.
It is. Absolutely, dude. It's, and, some, the sponsor thing and all that stuff. I had a sponsor and it went south. And so it's not that it's not that I'm a naysayer about it. I just, you know, I hold myself accountable to me, my family, and him, and God. Um,
And I mean, recovery, everybody's recovery is their recovery. So whatever
yeah,
works for you
yeah,
doesn't work for seven other
yeah,
people, you
yeah.
know?
There are people that as soon as you say, "Well, I don't have a sponsor right now," they lose it.
Yeah.
They lose it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's great. It's worked for you, and I always know that if I think I need a sponsor, I'll go get one.
Yeah. I
You
think
know?
the important thing to remember is AA is a suggested plan of recovery,
Right.
right? It's
Yep.
suggested. If you do these things, you will live a better life.
Yep.
But doesn't mean you have to do it the exact way they tell you to. Just get the shit done. I
Just,
mean, at the end of the day,
yeah.
just do the shit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a guy, I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I got to four-step myself today. Oh, shit, I got to nine-step myself. Oh,
You
shit,
know?
I gotta say, no,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, shit, I
Yeah.
just did something stupid. Let's
Yeah.
apologize. Or,
Yeah.
oh, I'm being a little short today. Let's change that shit. So,
Yeah, there's a couple sayings, dude. Like I love the little cliche sayings because they're like spot on, like Hammer hits the nail on the head. One of them is there's nothing a drink won't make worse, you know. And the other one, that one I love, and then the other one is just don't pick up. There is nothing I'm gonna go through today that requires me to pick up a drink, and I go through the day with that mindset, and as long as I stay in that mindset, I know that no matter what happens, I don't need to pick up a drink. You know?
so let's talk about today.
Yeah.
How has your life changed?
Today?
Yeah, how is your life right now
Oh,
on
dude.
whatever day of the month this is,
Oh.
whatever time it is?
My life is a blessing right now, man. I'm blessed to be here. A miracle happened in my life, and I'm grateful. I am a grateful human being. Sitting across from you is one of the most grateful human beings you'll ever meet. Because I have a new chance at life when I thought my life was over. Serious. I mean, I thought my life was over. I had given up. And I have this new opportunity. I have opportunities like this to sit here with you. And, the opportunities that, keep coming up with my girls and learning moments and just being present and being the dad that they need and the husband that my wife needs. And I'm still going to fall short of things. I'll never be perfect, never even close to it. Perfection doesn't even exist in my book. I just do the right thing. I try. You
Clean
know,
house, trust God, help
that's it,
others.
man. I'm an integrity guy too. Because I tell my girls all this stuff, and if I'm not following the same words I'm telling them, then I'm a liar, and I don't want to be that liar. I want to be somebody who, even when nobody's watching, I'm going to do the same thing. And here's an example of why integrity became so important to me. I was in rehab down in Greenbrier. This was, I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe 5. And I'm walking down the hall, going down gonna hit the stairwell to go down and get something to eat. And there was a piece of garbage on the ground, just a paper or something rolled up, in the middle of the hallway. And I looked at it and I walked right on by. And as soon as I got to the door to go into the stairs, there was a sign that said, "God saw that." And I went right back over and picked up that piece of paper and put it in the garbage can. You know, because if I'm gonna talk the talk, then I need to walk the walk. And the right thing to do when I was walking down that hall was to lean over and pick up that piece of paper and put it in the garbage can. As little as minuscule as that little thing was, it was the sign that held the power in that moment that said God saw that. And I remember that every day when I start my days. No matter what I'm praying or saying, he knows what I'm doing. He knows my heart, he knows my actions. If I go out and I'm saying one thing and I'm sneaking around doing something, that's where I start feeling that knife inside. Just grinding like, oh man, I just feel and I know I'm doing something wrong. I'm being held accountable and he's bringing it to my attention that I'm making a mistake or I'm making a bad choice or I'm lying or whatever it is. And I'm not good at handling guilt, okay? So if I do something and I feel guilty about it, my body action changes.
Well, I think I might be in trouble because one of my new favorite things to do within the last month is to go to the beer distributor and go, "Hey, can you tell me where your 0.0% alcohol beers are?" And they look at you like you've got, 3 eyes and 2 mouths because they're like, Nobody really buys that stuff. But like
Yeah.
yesterday I wanted a beer.
Yeah.
I went golfing in the sun
Yeah.
and I wanted a beer.
Yeah.
It was one of those days where it
Uh-huh.
was like I was sweating. I had going on 24 hours with no sleep because I got off work. I didn't go to sleep. I went golfing and I drove around for a half hour trying to find a beer distributor that had non-alcoholic beer
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was like, well, I can still have it
Yeah.
as long as it's got that 0.0
Zero
in
point
front of it.
zero. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that folks have to understand is and this is a side note.
Hmm.
When it talks about non-alcohol beer, just because it says it's non-alcoholic doesn't mean it is.
Right.
If it says 0.03% alcohol,
Yeah.
it
Just
has
alcohol.
alcohol.
Right.
You got to find the two zeros with
Yeah.
the decimal point between
Yeah.
it. And guess what? Most beer distributors will be very helpful because they want to get you out of their store. But listen, we've been doing this for about
Yeah.
an hour and 15
Yeah, we
minutes.
have, dude. Good.
I always like to ask people, one,
Yeah.
I appreciate your story. I appreciate you as a human being, and I'm
Yep.
so glad that you decided to come join us and tell
too,
everybody
man.
what you went through and how your life is.
Yeah.
If you could give any nuggets of information for people to take home with them, maybe a struggling alcoholic or someone who drinks too much or someone who's suffering from mental health,
Yeah.
what could you give our viewers and listeners to think about?
Okay. So, and I speak from experience that if you're at a point in your life and you sound like me and you're struggling, you're hopeless, you can't stop drinking, you think there's no way to make it back, that recovery is possible. I will tell you that recovery is possible because I was at that point where I did not think it was possible, and a lot of times I'll talk about the PTSD stuff because it had a big play in my life, and I've got lots of friends that have taken their lives, and I was close, and it's the same thing for PTSD, anxiety, depression. You know, there's a way back. You know, you're not alone. And reach out to Mark, reach out to me. I can be found on Facebook, and I think Mark can too. We're just two individuals, at least. I'm speaking for me and what I believe Mark stands for, and that's to help anybody else that's dealing with what we went through. And if my story helps one person, I'm doing the right thing.
Well, I can guarantee you somebody's watching, somebody's listening, and somebody's identifying with what you're saying. I appreciate your time. I know it's been a hassle trying to get this thing together, but I want to have you back on again.
Absolutely.
We can maybe talk a little bit more about the mental health aspect of
Absolutely,
your addiction.
sure. Yep.
But hey, everybody, that's Chris Searcy, amazing guy. Glad I met him. think there's going to be a relationship here for sure. Just remember, there's always a seat at the round table for you. We love you guys, and we hope that we can help you avoid the mistakes that we've made. Till the next time.